This conference will now be recorded.
Those are the magic words. You got the voice to speak at least.
I think I said April was, they had a call. A few minutes late, they had a call. There she is. Speaking of devil. All right. 6:32, I'll call the meeting to order of the Cottage Grove Fire District Committee meeting, 28th, 6:30. We do have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted in the town and the village. Public appearances, I think there's anybody here, so moving on. Discuss and consider the minutes from the October 6th, 2022 meeting.
I move approval with the exception that you want to add my last name.
Right.
Sorry.
Chris handwrites them and then Kim wrote them down. We will get that changed. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstention.
We have one abstention.
Who was the second?
Sarah, sorry.
I'm thinking that's it. I'm getting better.
Motion carries. Chief's report.
Okay, so everyone hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Yep.
So for the staff info, we're sitting at 44 total staff. That consists of 10 officers, 1 driver, 23 firefighters, and 10 probationary. As of 11/22, we were at 274 calls. That's jumped up in the last few days. There's been quite a few calls. This would put us at about 307 for the year. So we'll probably more accurately be around 310, 315 if this continues the way it is. Hopefully it doesn't, but the breakdown so far is 122 for the village, 64 for the town of Cottage Grove, 45 for Pleasant Springs, and 43 mutual aid. Only updates for apparatus is that they're still waiting on the tank manufacturer to come repair the leak on tender 1. Otherwise, all the other maintenance has been completed. Training information, we had a house donated to us in Pleasant Springs. We'll be doing all kinds of training in there from now until the time we burn it down. The burn down date is March 11th, 2023. Staff milestones, so Jamie Gogla has been on for 3 years. Jason Kudrina is at 10 years, or 7 years, I'm sorry. And Matt Maybe is at 22 years. Other news, the department added 1 new member in October and 1 in November. There's currently 1 application for new membership, which will be voted on at the December meeting. The in-station SCBA system has arrived and will be installed on December 5th. The association has voted to purchase a used command vehicle from McFarland Fire Department. It will be used for several things, including command officer responses to calls, transportation to classes, and to pull the UTV to wildland fire calls. The island removal at the station has finally been completed. The new flammables cabinet that was approved last month has been installed and put into service. The new fire lockers have also been installed. And with the additional lockers, we now have space for 49 members.
Awesome. Any questions for Chief?
I am wondering, have the false alarms from Cottage Grove Commons improved? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually gotten significantly better. We haven't been there, knock on wood, in a while now. So
He said it, didn't he? He said it.
And the purchase of the vehicle, When do we get that? When do we get the vehicle? How does that whole thing work?
So McFarland has approved selling it to us directly. Their municipalities did. Their new command vehicle is sitting there ready to go, except for the outfitter for the lights never ordered the lights when they were supposed to. So they're waiting on their new truck to get all the lights and siren installed in it. And once that's done, then they'll sell it to us. So, but it's already been approved by their municipalities.
How old is it?
It's 2012,
Okay.
How many miles on it?
34,000.
Oh.
So it's a Chevy Suburban 2500. It's already got all the lights, the siren. It's basically ready to go. We're just gonna have to put our own graphics on it and put a radio in it, and we'll be good to go.
Great.
And is that the car one later on in the agenda?
Yep.
Cool. Any other questions for Chief?
Nope.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Moving on, discuss and consider flooring estimates for flooring replacement in ESB basement.
That one, I only had time to get one quote. They came and did the stripping and floor work, the upstairs and the downstairs, and there was quite a bit of problems with that whole process. That's been finally completed now, to a decent level. So I only was able to get one quote. So I was gonna actually see if we could just table that till next meeting, and I can get a couple more quotes just to make sure that it's competitive.
I move we table it.
I have a motion to table
Second.
and I have a second from Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next one, Nick, Cottage Grove Fire Department car one.
So the association's asking, so as I mentioned, we're purchasing a command vehicle that we're gonna be using on calls and responses. And basically what the association's wondering is if it would be okay to use, have the municipal budget pay for the fuel and the maintenance and the insurance on that vehicle. Or if it's gonna be, the fire department has to pay for it because they bought it, I guess.
I don't know. Chris, you're shaking your head, no.
I mean, we hadn't budgeted for it.
Budget's done.
No, no,
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the budget's done in the village. I mean, how much are the
We're
expenses?
not really looking for an increase to the budget. I think there's enough in the fuel budget there and enough money in the insurance budget and enough in our maintenance budget that we can cover it without, I'm not asking you guys to change the budget. And I guess in the future, 2024's budget, obviously it would reflect that if this were approved. I'm just asking if that's acceptable to do because it's technically the association's vehicle. That's where the gray area is, and I'm just seeing, but it's being used strictly for fire department responses, I guess. So that's kind of the gray area where I was trying to get your guys' approval from.
So you want to give it to us?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Is there any possibility that the organization can just donate it to the fire department?
That would have to go up to a vote from the association. I could ask them if they're in favor of doing that.
I
So
think that just makes it a cleaner
For insurance.
for insurance and everything else.
Insurance gets complicated.
Yeah,
When you own the vehicle, but we pay for the insurance. I mean, like, it's one thing for a piece of equipment, right? Like a Jaws of Life or a bandage or a hose, right? But a vehicle kind of changes the game.
Yeah.
yeah, I think.
yeah, and that's exactly why I was bringing it up, because I didn't want to just, I didn't want them to assume. I told them going into this that if they're going to buy this car, there's obviously cost to it. And they need to know, whether they're gonna pay for that on their own or if the municipalities is gonna pay for it. And so that's why I brought it to you guys, I guess, and I can ask them about donating it back to the municipalities, see if they want to do that.
I think that's the best bet because no one wants to get involved in the liability aspect. And then I'm not saying that, that anything's gonna happen or anything, but
Yes.
There'll be an accident.
yeah, but that's the whole point. That's why we'd want it to be a clean donation. I would think it would work in their, well, you're a
Yeah, I mean-
501(c), so, but.
Right, just to clarify for the Joint Fire Committee, the way that it works is that the insurance policy that we currently have is actually in the Cottage Grove Fire Department Inc.'s name. We are the insured party, not the municipalities. So you guys pay, in our budget, we have insurance as a cost. And that's for us to pay for the insurance, which covers the trucks, it covers the equipment. So technically, right now, the insurance is actually in our name on those vehicles, covering those vehicles because we're the operators, right?
Which makes it even more complicated because we own all the other vehicles.
Correct.
Right. So it's just, roles have been reversed. We own the
Yeah.
vehicles and you pay for the insurance, which
Right.
this seems to come up every 6-8 months, this conversation of
But it's,
vehicle ownership and who pays for
but
the
it's a
insurance.
lot more complicated now with all the, with all the issues being involved and people looking for deep pockets. And I would just think that it would be a lot easier just to donate it.
Well, before perhaps we jump into that, maybe we look at the bigger picture first, if indeed there is a bigger picture with regards to the,
Insurance?
yeah,
Need,
what's that?
or the need.
Well, that's a separate discussion point if you wanted to have that, but,
What was the bigger picture, Steve?
what's that?
What's the bigger picture to consider? I
No,
didn't hear
yeah,
you
it's just the
finish
bigger
your-
picture of, ownership versus, who's, because I know, we write the check, or we actually pay for the insurance and then we get reimbursed from the village for
Yeah.
appropriate
I
breakouts
thought-
and everything else.
I thought Fire
And-
Inc. just said they pay for the insurance.
Well,
We do. So the 501(c)(3) pays for the insurance because it includes events, the different events that the fire department holds. So it doesn't just include coverage for the fire trucks, it includes protection for all of the events that the fire department has, like the parade and the festival and the community
That's what your
gatherings.
501(c) pays for.
And it covers everything. So it covers the insurance for the apparatus and public events and all of that. So it's a huge policy that protects Cottage Grove Fire Inc.
I think
But don't you want to, wouldn't it be, this isn't being donated to Cottage Fire Inc., is it?
well, I think
Because they're
Steve's
involved.
talking about a bigger issue, and I absolutely agree. I think we need to come back in a future meeting and we talk about what is the state of insurance amongst the three entities and how does it get paid.
because I was,
And
personally,
is everybody okay with that?
yeah, even for as long as I've been on the committee, I guess I probably maybe did know at one point, but it kind of, that we were actually insuring the Inc. as opposed to paying for the Inc. to have the insurance versus the town/village as a governmental entity.
Is
kind of
that-
thing.
Is that an umbrella policy or is it auto and like have you bundled?
I
like,
think,
I'm
no, I
curious, that's-
remember seeing breakouts by specific vehicles, and
I'll make a note of it. I think we should.
just for clarification, I mean,
But I think,
and it's nothing that, I'm not saying that this is anything under the table or anything else like that. It just, if it's okay the way it is, fine. If it's got to be changed because of whatever.
agreed. So I think that's the bigger issue, and I think we can talk about that next month potentially, but I think that to get Nick an answer though, I guess Nick, help me understand you. So you think there's enough in the budget for the rest of this year, what's left of it, and next year? I guess walk me through that statement.
I don't think that there's going to be very much cost associated with it this year. I would be surprised if we got it much before January 1st. By the time they get all their stuff done with it and they get it installed and then they get transferred over to the other one, there's really not going to be much cost left on this year. It's going to be next year's budget that's going to take the take the brunt of it. And like I said, I put quite a bit in there for fuel. I put extra in there for insurance because there's always insurance seems to always go up, and fuel is such an unknown right now that I think there's enough in there to cover it. You know, I think they're just wondering for a permanent plan, like every year, you know, and I mean, I think they've already talked about it, that if the municipalities doesn't want to pay for that, they would be willing to pay for it on their own. But I think obviously they wanted to see if we could just cover it the same way we were, because the municipalities didn't have to purchase a car, is what they're saying. Is that, I guess that's where they're at. So
I guess my biggest thing is don't take delivery till January 1.
mm,
I mean, so I'm looking through the budget, and you went from 22 for fuel alone, you went from 3,900 to 12,000 for 23.
yep.
So I could see that. Insurance stayed the same though, 23,000 year over year.
Yeah, and I think the last year there was extra money in the insurance. We didn't use all of it, which is going to change a little bit with engine 3. You know, I guess if it came to it this year, there could be, you know, the association could pay for the insurance on the truck or something. And I think they're more concerned about the maintenance and the fuel is what they're, you know, I think that's kind of where they're looking at.
And your maintenance budget stayed the same too.
Yep, maintenance stayed the same, but we put in quite a bit more for the repair budget.
10 grand more. So
Have you written a policy on the use of the vehicle?
Not yet. That would be done before the truck is put into service.
Okay.
I think we would like to see that.
There's a lot of stuff that is off to the side issue of what we're dealing with. I mean, if you think that you can handle it in your budget, go ahead, but I think this, just like Steve was saying, it begs a bigger question of who pays for what and liabilities and everything else.
I think it probably should only come out of the
Sure.
budget if the vehicles are owned in the same way that the other vehicles are.
Yeah,
Which would be how it would make sense to me. I would support helping to pay for the service, the, you know, ongoing,
Yeah.
cost of it, if it were owned in the same way the other vehicles are. So it sounds like that has to go back to the association, Nick, that discussion.
Yeah, they didn't talk about donating it to the municipalities, so that would have to be a discussion, which is at our next Tuesday. Next Tuesday would be the business meeting, so I could bring it up then.
Right. Steve, I guess the other side question you were asking, like, does the committee agree that, and my mind's just slipping here, like in terms of, April, what do we want to call this vehicle? Is it like a chief's vehicle or a command vehicle?
It's yeah,
Command vehicle.
it's called Car 1.
Do we all agree that the fire department needs a command vehicle? Because Steve, I think that was an idea. Maybe you broached it, maybe I heard it wrong.
You know, I guess I'm kind of doing this very fine balancing act on top of on the fence. I do see a need for it in some cases, but because of early on, okay, and I'm gonna stress this, early on, when Deer Grove got an extra vehicle above and beyond the ambulances, there was some liberties taking with that vehicle that didn't really
Yeah, I remember that.
show
I
the
remember
ambulance
that whole
service
issue.
in its best light,
Yeah.
okay? And I guess if the fire department is going to have a vehicle, I would like to see a policy, and maybe we even approve the policy
Yeah.
of its use to prevent, you know, kind of, again, you guys
And you
weren't around back
recurrence.
then, so you don't, but I'm just saying, I would,
You don't want to see
I
it
don't
going
wanna
up to a
repeat-
bar. Like,
I don't want to repeat history, you know?
Fair enough.
And so,
I forgot.
I mean, the other thing is, it sounds like it's a done deal, you know? I mean, as far as the purchase goes, at least the agreement to purchase. I don't know if any cash has been exchanged or anything else like that at this point in time. So am I going to say, okay, yes, I know you have it, but no, you can't use it? Of course not. You know, again, we've just got to figure out how we're going to incorporate it into the existing budget, you know, have a plan of its use and some policies, and then we
I
can.
guess to summarize a little bit, the plan is to use it as a command vehicle when there's staff available to do it. So we're gonna have to create a system where we can track when people are available, because if we're in a spot where, you know, we have, you know, where there isn't 30 people in town, then running that car first probably isn't the best plan. You know, it's only gonna be used when it's appropriate. The second part is that officers are going to be the only ones using it as a command vehicle, which would be actually a captain and higher. So we're not even opening it to the lieutenants at first. It's going to be the chiefs, the 3 chiefs, and then the 3 captains that we have. So there's really only 6 people that can operate it that way as a command vehicle. When it is being used as a command vehicle, the plan was to keep it. The person who's the command officer for the day would be taking the vehicle to their house, and they would respond immediately from their house with the command vehicle, rather than driving to the station, picking up a truck and going. So that's to help get a person from fire on scene even faster than we already are. Not that we're having a problem with our times, but it's always beneficial to have a pair of eyes there quicker. So that's where we're at. Like you said, we will write a policy, which we can show you guys before any approval from you guys. If you'd like, that's fine. So, yeah.
Nick, is there going to be any out of the district 1033 response with that vehicle? Unlike the former Monona police or fire chief responding 33 back into Monona for calls
Can you? I don't know
from Cottage Grove.
what
Oh,
is
I'm
that?
sorry, emergency. So in other words,
I was looking it up too.
what I'm referring to is that the former Monona fire chief used to live here in
Oh, yeah, I
Cottage Grove.
remember his truck used to be
Yeah.
parked out in front of.
Anyway, there was something
I would
big
say
going
that
on top of his truck, and he'd be screaming lights and sirens back into Monona. And I don't know what their plan is, if it's only going to be,
All units.
I'll say within the district, you know, and,
Well,
you know, speak.
if they're taking the command vehicle home for a command officer, then they have to stay in the district. So that wouldn't be an issue for that part of it. But if they're taking it to a class, then I guess what we would write into the policy is that they're not to use lights and sirens until they're back into our district. You know, they're gonna respond normally until they're into our territory, if there's a call, I guess.
But then it's even more important that you get this policy first.
Correct.
It seems to me that the only way in which we would have any authority over how the association uses its cars, if it becomes under the ownership and we start paying for it. If the association decides they don't want to have the municipality share ownership, then to me, it sounds like association can decide what they want to do with it, when and how,
Yeah,
and they don't have to
exactly.
pass anything through us. So I just wanted to clarify
It just
that.
gets, it just
Well,
gets murky
I-
and complicated.
Yeah, I just,
Very-
I agree with you to a point, Sarah, but
Our name's on it.
correct. You know, I mean, it's, if somebody does, if an issue occurs, let's put it that way.
I think I need something a little bit more, I mean, let's make it real, like paint us a horror story.
I know what and I don't want to, it's gonna tell you who it is as soon as we
Fair.
talk about it.
I guess what I would say is, technically, yes, Sarah's kind of right that if we owned it, it would be our vehicle. We could do whatever we want to do with it. But I guess what I would also say is that we've never operated that way. You know, we value the partnership with the municipalities, even though we're technically not a municipal department, we still act like we're a municipal department. And if we don't do stuff that reflects poorly on ourselves or typically you guys either, and if there was something like that going on, then, you know, if there needed to be a change immediately made, we've never been opposed to making changes to make it comfortable for everybody, I guess is where it is. And I understand that in this day and age, without stuff in writing, it becomes more difficult because there's nothing in writing. But I guess I just wanted to clarify that, you know, if there was something happening that the municipalities wasn't comfortable with, then we would immediately address it upon any concern, is what I would say.
I guess I would, to my earlier question, I absolutely think that the fire department would benefit greatly from a command vehicle. In conversations with Nick and the chiefs, I think it's a good purchase. I think it's the devil's in the details, and I think the fact that this one vehicle, to me, it's a slippery slope because it's this vehicle you own. 4 years later, you decide, well,
We need a new one. You're
you need a
gonna
new one. Like, well, not even that, but like now we start, you know, we have a hard enough time, granted in the new agreement, like we've talked about, we've split the vehicles pretty evenly now. Now there's a third party vehicle, right? And now it just adds complexity to the whole situation, right? So I'm kind of with Sarah, like if we can find a way, you know, at your next business meeting, if it's okay to either donate it or if it's I'm not a lawyer, but if it's an arbitrary amount, like it's $1, you have to sell it to, like, we'll figure something out. But I think, you know, if I'm trying to explain to, you know, village residents, hey, the fire department needs a command vehicle, but they own it, but we maintain it, like it's a complicated conversation to have. Whereas, hey, the fire department Inc. went and bought a car, they sold it or donated it to us, we're paying for the maintenance, it just makes it for an easier conversation. And it's a lot clearer, you know, in terms of roles and responsibilities. In terms of the number, Nick, I like overall difference in the joint owned apparatus expenses is about $11,000. So I think barring any major changes in the price of diesel, I mean, I'm with you that I think we could probably weather the storm in 23. But I say that and I still get, you never know, right? Like what might happen, but I think that's always.
Yeah, no, nobody knows what's going to happen. So I agree. I understand what you're saying. So
just to give you a little bit of background too on the insurance policy that as it sits right now, it is in the name of Cottage Grove Fire Department, Inc. But the contact is the town clerk. And it lists the village and the town as leasers and owners of all the apparatus in the insurance policy. So, and then all of the vehicles are listed. And then it has in here, what's covered is crime, all the portable equipment, auto, general liability, management liability, and excess liability. So that's everything that's covered in the current policy.
Where's Melissa?
So given that it sounds like if the association maintained ownership of this vehicle, we'd have to somehow update that to say that.
I think it'll just ask who the leaser and owner is on that
Okay, so is it
apparatus.
by vehicle by vehicle?
Yeah.
Oh, great, okay.
So that's what the policy would ask for, is who the insured leaser is, or
Okay.
it just asks for some information about that particular apparatus or vehicle. the way it looks in the policy.
Right, but the chair also he even mentioned that, so you get used to it. Eventually, it's gonna have to be replaced, and then, how does that fit into our budgets at that point?
I think we discussed it at that point. I don't think that us accepting ownership of the car somehow
Obligates us.
obligates us in 10 years to replace it.
Future.
I don't think.
Okay.
I wouldn't be a
Well,
betting man, I mean.
That's fine
We
if,
can't predict the future.
yeah, but I'm just saying that,
I mean, to be fair, I think Sarah's right, because I won't say we've entertained the idea, but the conversation came up about the ladder replacement. Right, like Chris and Steve both mentioned, like, do we have, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but essentially you brought up the idea of, do we have to replace the ladder? I mean, like,
exactly.
I think we need to, but at the same time, like the conversation you're absolutely right. The conversation has been brought up about different vehicles. Just because you bought it in the past doesn't mean you need to replace it. That said, I'm not saying we're not going to replace things. I'm just saying that there's not without that conversation is not without precedent.
So also,
You know,
it also says other named insured Cottage Grove Fire District in the policy. Just so you know.
Well covered.
Then it just becomes more of a
Keeping.
So Nick, one last question. Will the vehicle be always stored inside? Will it be garaged?
I guess when it's at people's houses, I would say it's probably not gonna always be in somebody's garage. But that's another thing we can put in the policy too, that if there's inclement weather, it shouldn't be sitting outside in inclement weather, it should be sitting in a garage somewhere. So there still has to be some discussions around how it's gonna be stored too.
Yeah, with winter weather, with sleet, ice, snow, if it's outside, it's not going to get you there any quicker. If you have to
Correct.
clean it off.
Yeah, there are a few of us as officers that have enough room that, if they took it home, they would put it in a garage. I guess like the example would be April and I, our garage is big enough that we could put it in our garage when we had it. I don't know about Jess's situation.
Yep.
Some of the other officers have enough room, some probably don't. So they might not be able to sign up for the shift of driving the car as often, I guess.
Something to think about though.
Correct. Yep. It's a good point.
I think part of it too, to what Nick said and what April has said too, trying to figure out how it acclimates into our current operational system. That's going to take some trial and error. And I think you're right. There's got to be the policy. There's got to be some oversight. We have to figure out how to do it. I think we know how we want to do it. The question is, will it work the exact way we think? And I think we got a good vehicle and a good place to start with it. And I think we've thought about it a lot. So.
Are we gonna start down here when, say, no one is available to take it home? Is there a spot? I don't think so, is there? Or you,
Not unless you get rid of the parade truck.
the what?
Parade truck.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What you gotta do, get a fundraiser for a standalone garage for the parade truck. Just so you got an extra spot in the real garage.
That's the idea. So do we want to table this?
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a
Motion to
lot.
table.
Second.
Motion and second to table.
Can we have discussion?
Discussion.
What would be the most helpful and clear for the association's meeting on Tuesday? Because what I'm hearing, at least where I'm coming from, I'm thinking is, if the association gives the municipality the vehicle, I think we should then do the repairs and maintenance. It should become part of our fleet, and we look at policies and figure it out. If the association on Tuesday says, no, we want to keep it in our name, then I say, then they keep it in their name and pay for the other, whatever else it is. Are other folks in overall alignment with that, so that folks know if they should put it on the agenda in such a way for their association meeting?
I would be amenable to the fact of folding it into the fleet, so to speak. I mean, it's here.
But there's issues.
No, there's nothing in my mind that's even remotely insurmountable. And I think.
No, I'm just saying, but there's just issues.
You know, I'm hoping that nothing else breaks and Nick's budget, you know, serves well for this next year and stuff like that, as is. But, yeah, let's give it a shot. You know, I just.
Well, I think at least give the association an understanding of where we're at, so
Yeah,
that they can
yeah.
make a
I
decision.
think there's a consensus that we would support it.
Uh-huh.
I think my initial reaction to your question was, I want to cross that bridge when we get there, because I think it's pretty clear to the leadership that we would feel more comfortable if we had ownership of the vehicle, because it would match everything else. I think that's pretty clear. I think if the membership is like, no, we want to own this truck, I think it just opens another evolution of the conversation. I think to Steve's point, nothing's insurmountable here. It really, in my mind, really complicates things if that's the one vehicle, because then some other vehicle comes up and let's say Cottage Grove Fire Department Inc. decides to buy that one instead of having us buy it. So like over time, the likelihood, however unlikely, it opens the possibility that we end up with a mishmash of different ownerships of vehicles. And it's like, it's complicated.
But we have it right now. I mean, that's the current state if the association doesn't do anything. If the association doesn't take any further vote, the association is the owner of the vehicle. As of today.
Sure,
the
but
way the
to
purchase
Nick's
happened.
point though, like the membership and the leadership especially, like they don't want to do something that it's a partnership, right? I don't think they're going to go out and just say, hey, it's our vehicle now, we're going to have it. Like I think.
No, but
I
they
think it's
already,
gonna be more of a conversation.
they entered into agreement, right? We've entered into the agreement to buy it? The association has? Is there an official agreement that says we'll pay this price?
I mean, there's no official I mean, they offered to sell it to us rather than going to, rather than putting it to auction. We've discussed us purchasing it directly, which was approved by the municipalities. But there's no like contract. We haven't exchanged money yet. So, I mean.
So potentially then would they be willing to have that same agreement if it was purchased by the municipalities? So it didn't have to go through the association? I don't know. We can figure that out,
Yeah.
but.
The struggle is the budgets are done, so we don't have the money to buy it, so we'd have to wait until.
Right, we'd have to, the association, yeah. So, but anyways, it sounds like though, association wants the car, has the money for the car, buys the car. If they agree that the municipalities co-own it, we do the cost, we participate in
Figure
it.
something out there, yeah.
Nothing is insurmountable that we can't figure out of all the issues that were raised.
Yeah, I know.
If the association says, no, we don't want the municipalities to participate in the ownership, then I don't.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, right. I mean, but the association has to make that first decision, I guess. And it sounds like they're meeting on Tuesday. So I don't know. Then they could, maybe Nick, you could at least bring this information so they could use that to make their decision on how they want the car to be owned.
Okay.
They could get naming rights. You know, hey, no. I just, identity is important. You know, I mean, first of all, nobody said it, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but thanks for spending your hard-earned money for something that will be of use to the department. You know, I will officially thank the association and everybody involved. Thanks. But you know, it'll say Cottage Grove Fire Department on the side, you know, donated by Cottage Grove Fire Department, you know, the association or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, you see it. I've seen it on other fire vehicles, EMS vehicles, you know, partnerships, you know, all sorts of things.
Sure. It's part
And
of
I think if it comes to that, I just think it's, you know, a little bit of acknowledgement would be a good thing, you know.
Sure.
Public acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll wait to hear back, I guess.
But the motion was to table. So that's what I'm just trying to understand is, do we need to do anything official or
I think we
not?
No, I don't.
No, I think we just vote
We
to
just
table
voted
it.
to table it for future
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah. A motion and a second, no more discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, brain fart. All those in favor say aye. Nays, abstains, motion carries. Discuss and consider changes to Cottage Grove Fire Department role in construction inspections.
Okay, so this kind of came up from actually the village a little bit. There was some discussion earlier this year about whose role it was to inspect in the construction phase of the sprinkler systems and fire systems. You know, upon review, it appears that it would be general engineering's, because that's what it says in village ordinance, and that's what it says that you're paying them to do in the contract between you and them. But a few weeks ago, Matt actually asked if the fire department would like to start doing the inspections on sprinklers and fire alarms in the construction phase. I brought it up to the officers of the department, and they're a little hesitant about it, rightfully so, because if you guys are already paying general engineering to do it, then why would we agree to do it, I guess? And if we were going to do it, would there be compensation for doing that? Because people are taking off from their jobs to go do these inspections. They happen during the day. So there'd be a lot of stuff that would have to be decided if that was the plan moving forward. You know, I mean, Matt also discussed doing an MOU between us, the village, and the commercial inspectors to, you know, to decide this. But I guess, I know this kind of sounds like a village issue, but the town's using the same company, so it's going to come up on the town side too. So I think the position that the fire department has is that, yes, we could do those inspections, but you're already paying the general contractor to do those. They're already in there doing the plumbing, the electrical, the framing inspections, and all that stuff is right next to it while they're walking through. Does it make sense to have us come in and do it when they could look at the same thing? Well, they could look at that stuff while they're doing their inspections, first of all. And then second of all, I guess, like I said, would there be pay involved? You know, would the village ordinance need to be changed to reflect that? Would the town's ordinances need to be changed? I think there's a lot more to it than just saying, okay, now the fire department's going to do that. So that's kind of why I brought it to the joint fire committee, because there's a lot going on there, and I guess I'm not sure how to answer that. If, you know, if this is how it should change or if it should stay the way it is, or so I was looking for some more input, I guess.
Sure, I think, a couple things, Nick. I think, like, it's, help me understand the gravity of the situation, right? Because this has been going on since the summer. This conversation's been going on for a while.
Probably longer than that.
Longer than, at least since I've known,
Basically, because both the town and the village are both what's called a delegated agency, what happens is that for commercial buildings, the state is delegating your commercial building inspection to do the inspections on these systems in the construction phase, because they don't have enough inspectors and enough time to get out and do all these inspections that are going on. So you guys are the delegated authority. In your case, your delegated agent in the village is Steve Gothard through general engineering. So plans, the plans for the sprinkler systems and the fire alarm systems, that still has to go to the state and be approved. Once those are approved, the building gets built. At the end of it, then Steve Gothard and general would be responsible for inspecting those systems and making sure they comply with all building code for the state. So the state doesn't have to send a representative. They're telling you guys or your municipality that your delegated agent has their authority to approve this installation, basically. So it's the same for the town and the village. The town uses the same company, but they have Jim Shreven, I think, instead of Steve Gothard. But it's the exact same company, so the same question's going to come up in the town. So really, the way it's written right now in the village ordinance is that the general engineering is responsible for enforcing SPS chapters 361 to 366, which covers those systems. What we normally would do is once the building is complete, we witness the acceptance testing on those. Like, so when they're doing the hydro tests and the backflow preventers, we've always witnessed those in the past and signed off on that part of accepting the witness test, but not the installation. So what they're looking to do is have the fire department do all the sprinkler system stuff, fire alarms and sprinkler stuff. So all the installation inspections, and then witness the testing, so that the commercial inspector would just be responsible for the building portion of it.
Okay.
If that makes
From a village perspective, my understanding is that we don't, the board, either the joint fire committee or the village board doesn't necessarily have to approve anything.
Okay.
Happy to go down that route. Like, to me, I'm from a ceremony perspective, I guess I'm struggling on the gravity of the situation. Like, to me, it sounds like, if we want general to do the inspection, the initial inspections, you do the follow-up inspections, or if you guys want to do it, I don't really have a horse in the race, because from a cost perspective, the village just passes on the cost for those inspections on to the builder. So to be honest with you, truthful, I don't have a horse in the race here.
Why?
Oh, yes, you do. Liability.
Help me understand
Liability.
the liability here. Again, I'm asking questions.
That's why I say general engineering, they're the ones that are supposed to have the expertise to do it. They need to do it rather than the fire department, because then we're gonna have to look at liability insurance for them. If they screw up and let something pass and a fire happens and either the building burns or someone gets hurt.
So here's the thing. So the fire department has qualified people that could do it. So it's not a matter of if we're qualified or not. We do have qualified people that can do it. The insurance issue, the liability, that once again goes into the insurance policy. That insurance policy we were just talking about for the auto insurance is also the same insurance policy for our inspections. We're already insured to do, because we have to do, once the building's built, then we start doing NFPA 1 inspections, which is like occupancy inspections, like existing buildings. So we already do inspections in these buildings. After everything's built, it gets turned over to us, then the building becomes our responsibility, basically. It's our inspectable property. We do the inspections. So we have people that can do it. We would have insurance if we could. My biggest issue would be the time commitment, because let's face it, the village is building a lot of property at a very quick rate. And a lot of those inspections have to be done during the day, which is when a lot of our members are working. So if they're not going to their jobs, my big question is, like, are our inspectors going to get paid to do that? Because they're basically losing out on income to go do a test, which really you're already paying another inspector to do. So I guess I'm not sure how that works, I guess.
But that comes back to my question, is why is this important? I mean, if the general contractor is required to get his building inspected, why are we even?
Because from a village perspective, it's general, and again, folks, keep me honest here, because you've been close to the conversation, but as I understand it, general, for all the municipalities they work with, Typically, the fire departments do those inspections. And this is the only, Cottage Grove is the only 2 municipalities where general is asked to do those inspections. And so that's, and again, Nick and April and just keep me honest if I'm misstating this, but that's what was told to me, is that this is.
I guess that's what,
Today.
Yeah.
There'll be more.
Fair.
And I think just to clarify, and I'm new to this as of today, I just was brought in, so I could, but my understanding is the village is not necessarily asking the fire department to do it. It's more, if kind of like, we learned that it could be General Electric or fire department, and so wanted to give fire department first right of refusal, if you will, of, no, we don't want to do it, and that's totally fine. And then we'll move along with general contracting. And thank you, general engineering. If the fire department wanted to do it, I think there would be compensation. We could figure all those things out. We would rewrite the ordinance. We would update the contract with general engineering. We would do what we need to do if the fire department wants to do it. But if the fire department doesn't want to, that is totally fine.
To me, it was Chris, to your earlier point, to me, it was all things equal, right? General engineering is fully capable, insured, ready to go. Fire department, insured, has the capacity to do it, and we will pay you to do it. So all things being equal, I guess that's where where I'm at now. It's like all things equal, I don't have a horse in the race at that point, from my perspective.
I have a question, and it's related sort of. Refresh my memory. There was an incident or a situation, I shouldn't say an incident, in the village on one of the newer commercial buildings at the north end that didn't have something that the fire department wanted to see, either some
Radio contact?
yes, that's what it was. Thanks, Chris. Remember, I think, was it Summit?
Police repeaters in the apartment buildings.
What's that?
Did I say police repeater? Well, damn,
PDAs,
it's been
amplifiers.
a long day.
Yes.
Radio
Okay.
repeaters, thank you.
From that perspective, and it's, to me, it's a safety issue, given everything, but I'm wondering if the fire department chooses to maintain their current position as far as coming in for the performance eval, is there a way to prevent something from reoccurring with regards to the radio situation over there? Or could it have been prevented if the fire department got involved earlier with the inspections and so on? Or speccing out, this is what the contractor has to do because of X, Y, and Z. I'm just looking to get the fire department involved in some additional way.
I mean, the code that would be cited for that is part of the building code, which that section would not be covered by the sprinkler inspections. That's covered by a different section. Correct me if I'm wrong, April. So that would still be, regardless if we picked up the sprinklers and the fire alarms, there would still be some assumption that general engineering would be enforcing that code, correct?
We would have to work with them to enforce it because it's IFC, which is pulled in through the IBC, which is enforced through the building inspector. So we would have to work in coordination with general engineering to enforce the BDA requirement.
Which I understand, but you actually have to be notified though that, this is where they are in the design process, and that you guys can flex your muscles, to go ahead and say, no, we want this. And, and then kind of have use general engineering in this particular case to kind of give you some muscle against any possible pushback from the contractor.
So there's a couple things. We historically in the past do walk through buildings that are under construction and test our radios. And we do provide updates to the contractor on our radios and how they're working. and let them know whether or not they work. Additionally, the contractors do have the ability to test radio function during construction to find out whether or not radios will work in their facilities. They have the ability to do that. So they will know whether or not radios and cell phones will work in the building.
And if they don't,
They can add BDAs, they can add amplifiers. to
they can
ensure-
add, but I guess I'm looking for having some authority to go ahead and push the issue. Well, it's gonna cost me too much money. I don't want to spend it.
I think that's a separate
Yeah,
issue
that's a separate-
from.
Well, no,
It
but I'm
happened,
just
but-
saying, if they're not involved in it until after the fact, when everything's all designed, almost all built, and then, you know, I guess I'm just trying to,
I see where you're going there, but I still think it's parallel tracks on the same project, right? Like they don't really cross at any point, as I understand it, right? Like I think my take on it is, again, I think the thing that I needed to appreciate here is the fact that it's a volunteer fire department, it's volunteer inspectors, right? And I think that's the real piece that when it comes to,
Yeah,
I'm still trying to figure out how to have a horse in the race, right? And so like,
Well, you do it as a village resident, you do. General engineering is supposed to be, the contract says they're supposed to be doing it and supposed to have been doing it all along.
I guess,
So it's, the department's not done it.
I guess my
Current
take on
state
it,
is you're not doing it.
We've always done maintenance. That's what inspections are. And as April said, as a courtesy, so to speak, not only to us, but to the community and Public Works and who else, we've always been able to or allowed to witness those tests, and it gives us a really good idea how that system's gonna work.
Yeah.
We don't participate in the design. As Steve, we don't do anything, and we never have. We've always maybe seen a plan once in a while to say, here's where the hydrants are gonna go and all these other things. But it's for occupancy perspective, for building, and when April said IBC, that's international, the building code, just to make sure, because there's a lot of letters that came out there. And IFC, and they all kind of go in. We look at all those things. We've always done when the maintenance is done or the building's done, and it gets literally, when in this case at general engineering, when they're done and occupancy has been done and people are moving in, it goes on our roll that it gets its maintenance inspection from then on. It's always been that way. It's never not been that way until this last conversation. So it was complete news to me that said we don't do that with most fire departments. That's not what your contract specifically says you do those things.
The ones that they do it with are departments that have paid full-time fire inspectors or fire chiefs that already do in-house plan reviews themselves. And there's really, honestly, there's not a lot of those in the state.
Yeah, I mean, so it's.
I guess the
sounds
other
like-
thing too is if the question was just, do we want to do it or not? And you guys are okay with either way, I think upon talking to the officers that would be responsible for at this time aren't comfortable taking it on. So if it's simple as saying, no, we don't want to take it.
I mean,
No, we don't
want
wanna
to
take
take time off. They got.
I think it's worth visiting the conversation at another time when the department gets to that point, because hey, you don't have a lot of calls going on, but when you get that first, it's going to happen at some point. I think we all know that. When, I don't know, but I think down the road, then you have somebody to.
I mean, I'll just reiterate that, like, the thing in the conversation I had with you guys and the emails and then this conversation here, I think the thing that I wasn't fully appreciating was just that the inspectors aren't full-time, they're paid people. Even if I do pay them, there's time, there's effort, I gotta take off work, like there's things to consider. So in that case, like, it makes sense to have general engineering do it, because one, it's in the contract, and two, yes, you do the maintenance, inspections, but that's a 1/10 at most of the work effort involved in terms of doing all the stuff up front. I mean, like,
From site plan all the way through, general's involved.
so, okay.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
to
really
clarify too, the inspectors aren't 100% volunteer. They do get paid a flat fee per inspection. And that was one of the things we voted on earlier this year. Originally, it was like the village, it was $6 for an apartment building and $12 for commercial, which the village approved moving it up to 15 for every inspection. So the inspectors doing the maintenance portion get $15 flat rate for every inspection they do. And it kind of averages out. There's some inspections that take longer. There's some that are really quick, and it kind of averages out to make it, I guess, doable for people. But if you're talking about, like I said, leaving during your day job to do an inspection that could take several hours to walk through a full building, is $15 going to be what would cut it? And like I said, I think after talking to them, I think right now, at this time, they don't want to, not that they couldn't take on the responsibility and not that they're not qualified, but I think they just didn't want to take on that responsibility at this time. Is I think what they were leaning to. So Matt wanted to get together and do an MOU, and maybe we just write the MOU to reflect that still that general engineering is going to do the pre-constructions or the construction inspections, and we'll be responsible for witnessing the acceptance testing, because that's never been in writing either. So that could clarify a lot of the positions of all three entities, I guess, and simplify it.
Okay.
So the message, Chief, will you reply back to Matt then, or do you want one of David or I to
Yep.
that?
I'll follow up with Matt. He actually sent me an email today, and I said I was going to talk about it at this meeting. So I'll respond to him tonight after this.
Okay.
Nick, you can, okay, never mind. I'll call you. Just saying, do you want me to call him or do you want to talk to him? And
I'll
leave it up
talk to him.
Okay.
I'll talk to him.
Cool. I think, because it's a village issue, I don't think we need to take any action on the agenda item. Any objections to that? Okay. Yeah.
Because of the fact potentially it could become a town issue, I'm just wondering if whenever the conversations occur between your GEC inspector, make sure that Jim Trebian from the town is looped in also at that same meeting, because of the fact I don't think the town's gonna take any different position on what the village does or anything. So
I wouldn't want him in the meeting. We don't want to represent you.
No, I'm just saying our
Their
inspector.
I know, but he'd probably say, well, why am I here? And we'd say, so you can hear, but
Well,
take
I'm
none
sure
of
that
it as.
your inspector can talk to our inspector and.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you guys could write a similar MOU.
Just change village, just white out village and write town.
I like strike throughs.
Names and dates have been changed to protect the innocent. Awesome. Next one, I put it on as a consider, but figured I'd just kind of, it's more of a discussion, I think. The village, we did have Nick come to the village. Thank you again, Nick, for that. To talk about the ladder one replacement plan. For those who don't remember, we had talked about purchasing a ladder one replacement earlier than we originally thought we would. At this time, the village would like to wait and see because it did not fit within the financial management plan to purchase it earlier.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I did just, in some communication with Chief, and I can't remember April and Josh, who all was on that email, but we could possibly ask for, because we do pay on delivery, and ask for delivery a few months later, so we might be able to kick into another calendar year, but we could lock in our price sooner, if that makes sense. So even though they could get it to us in 13 months, maybe we ask for it in 16 months, because that kicks us into a new calendar year for budgeting purposes, but we can lock in the price at today, not today's price, I'm not saying we're going to do it today, but it's just I think possible, something to keep in mind as we're considering how to navigate this.
I did make a note that I'm getting better when we come, this is the second budget season for me to think about what comes around. So I'm with you, Sarah, in that I think every budget season, we should keep this in mind, knowing that ladder one needs to be replaced, knowing that they get more expensive, knowing that the lead times get worse. Just, I think, just make a mental note and then put an outlook sometime mid-July every year for the next couple of years, just to be like, is now a good time? Is not, because the lead times are 30 months.
24 for sure.
No,
Nick, you
it's,
letter?
the Pierce is like 36 months, which would best fit your time schedule. The other one was like 24 months, the E1s. But I think to Sarah's point, like even if you ordered it, let's say January 2023, like let's say next month you order it, they're only going to give you a few months in one direction. So that would be like January 2026. So they'd maybe push it to like April or May of 2026. It wouldn't push it far enough into another year, like 2027, unless you waited till like
You'd wait till
or September or something of 2023 to order it.
Right, and it would be totally pay on delivery, right? So there would be no expense until we took delivery. So
Correct.
it wouldn't affect the budget. So I wonder then, and that was the company you were leaning towards going with, right? The one that's 36 months?
Yeah, we were leaning towards Pierce because we've been replacing all the vehicles with Pierce. I think that was the favorite out of them, but yeah. So
Possibly if we got new quotes in Q4 of this year, we're in 2020,
Just 3 years.
next year, 2023.
You're still in 26.
Yeah, I know, but then we asked for delivery in January of 2027. Because it sounds like they'd push it out a couple
But
months.
you're threading a needle there, because what happens if, supply chains get better, right? Like, because it's 36 months now, but
Right. I think you're what you're thinking about is right. I think there's savings to be made, and lead times only help you. However, we know that there's going to be with each period you wait, honestly, from a quarterly perspective, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, almost from a quarterly perspective, that price is going to change. And I would agree that probably supply chains are not, I don't want to say they're not going to get worse, because they always can. But what happens if all of a sudden you're right, like you're like, hey, they're telling us it's 48 months now. We're like, okay, well, let's lock in right now. And that puts us 27, 28. And all of a sudden the truck is ready in 28 months. So obviously that's a contracting kind of a thing, but I think there's still savings to be made by municipalities. Because if you wait till you say, you know what, we're going to do it, we're going to finance it, we're going to accept it in 28. Okay, well then you have to back into that, kind of like we did with the other 2 trucks. There was a lot of money saved there. Hundreds of thousands on the last 2 to 3.
Right.
Whereas you're gonna have to play that game. We'll just keep updating the price, and the financial situation is what the financial situation is. That was really pay attention to it, keep it on your radar. If you can save some money based on when you order it, then wonderful. If the finances, it doesn't work out that way, then it doesn't.
Do you think we could put in the contract delivery in no earlier than January 2027? I know Nick's there, but I have to look at him here.
I mean, you could ask for it, but I don't know. They're not going to sit on a truck for 12, 15 months.
I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. If there is that much money to be saved, are we betting that the supply chain's going to get better? I mean,
No, you'd be betting, if the
if
supply chain gets better, if it's done earlier,
then
we lose our advantage.
well, then we have to
With
pay
the-
for it earlier.
With the thread, with the
So the
needles.
supply chain isn't the only thing that's dictating the length of time. What's really setting your 3-year lead time, the reason why it's 3 years for Pierce as opposed to 2 years for E1 is because Pierce has already got so many ladder orders placed that are ahead of your ladder order, and they can only build X amount per year. So they're calculating that based on what's been ordered already and where your ladder would fall into the queue, it's going to be 3 years. Supply chain is going to make it, supply chain problems, like if you can't get materials, is only going to extend it. They're not going to get done faster because they're still basing everything based on how many ladders they can build a year and how many are in front of the truck at the time of order. So realistically, I don't think if you ordered it for a 3-year lead time, it's not gonna show up early. It's probably gonna show up a few months after or directly at the 3 years.
So I think we should relook at prices in like September. And,
Okay.
and then see what the lead time is.
Yeah, it's August,
And-
September, every year.
And honestly, because we have a spec built now and he's already priced the truck, it's really easy to get a new price. We just tell him, update this, and a week later, he's got a new price for me. So it's really not that big a deal because everything's already built. He just saves it and he'll update it every time we ask for it. So
I think Nick, we just, every year, until we replace it, I think we just, between now and when we put the order in, every August, September timeframe, we just get a new quote and just see what it looks like. And
But I'd rather get it earlier in August than wait until like the end of September. We're already being rushed in budgets.
But it wouldn't impact the next year's budget.
But I'm just saying it would help us in planning.
Well, we're already planning a 2027 ladder. It's in our capital.
27 or
right now in the capital budget, it's 2028.
20. So
Oh.
that's,
Even 2027 would still be a year early, but
okay.
you're,
like, if it's a
You're-
3-year, you're buying it, you're ordering it in 2024.
I know, well,
I mean,
that's right.
Again, to your point, it doesn't affect the fiscal budget that you're working on for the following year, but it's still for the financial management plan. Like you plant a flag, you know, if you're gonna buy it a year early, that has a butterfly effect of all the other projects that you have going on, including the next year you're planning for.
I was thinking it was 27 that we had it in our capital plan. But either way, don't you think it would make sense to look at a
Every year, I think it's, again, I mean, Nick, you and I talked, I mean, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. A ladder that you've spec'd out will cost $3 million at some point in the near term, in less than 10 years.
it's possible. Definitely possible.
Like, well over double what we put in the financial management plan.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing, especially I think we found out with the engine, we found out with the tender and the squad to make sure all those capital budgets have a correct number in there. So,
Right.
you know, both municipalities aren't going, whoa, we've been budgeting 500 grand for this truck and wait a minute, now it's $1 million. How did it get from 500 to $1.5 million? We all look a bit foolish doing that. And I think we've learned a little bit on that. And
Yeah.
you're talking, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Mhm. Okay. So even just getting the quote would be helpful for us to update our
I think it's the
budget.
best interest of everybody involved from a fiscal standpoint to at least know exactly what you're talking about. Then you can make the decision at the time.
That sounds good.
Okay. Agenda item 10, discuss and consider consolidated joint fire agreement.
We will send it to our attorney and have him review it. It's replacing all the agreements other than the one that's has ink in it, correct? So there's some things I don't know why they're in there, but
Like which one? Which section?
you can get out of this.
Every contract has to have an out clause. This is how contracts are written.
It all depends on, you got to get out of the ink one first.
But I don't know what you're talking about with the ink thing.
So the contract that you guys are working on right now is one between the district, for the district, which is between the town and the
Out of the village.
right? And then there's a separate contract that exists still, currently exists, that's between the district and Cottage Grove Volunteer Fire Department, Inc. That says that we provide services to the district. So that contract, what Chris is talking about, states that the exit clause is 2 of the 3 entities have to agree to dissolve the contract. That's where I believe Chris is going with that. Contract still exists. It was signed in 2019 with auto renewals every 5 years. So I don't know what happened to that contract or where you guys are with that one. So
anybody have a copy of that?
You have the
I haven't
2019
seen that
version?
one.
Pardon?
You have the 2019 version? I've only seen the one from like 1997.
I think I have it on my desk.
Okay.
Yeah, the town should have a copy, the village should have a copy, and we have a copy. It was signed by all three entities.
Okay. So you'll send this agreement to your attorney?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a real problem with the ownership of the assets if they're ever, when they're sold, as to how that is dispersed.
So section 6C.
Uh, Well, it goes back to A, ownership of assets.
Based on equalized value.
But if you sold everything on January 1 of 23, you would get the majority of the money, even though we are the ones that paid for the majority of the capital expense.
For the building or real estate? Are you talking about the real estate or the equipment?
Anything.
How would you like that to read?
Well, I guess if you're sending it to your attorney, maybe your attorney would have some language that could redline it.
It should be based on, your value is based on what the value was at the date that you bought it. So if in 2010 it was 50-50, but in 2020 it's 60-40, and we sold it in 21, I should still get 50% because that's what I paid for it when we bought it in 2010.
Okay, so based on proportion.
But I would say have your lawyer,
Yeah.
we're not lawyers, so I'm not gonna come up with the language. So have your lawyer redline it, put that in, we'll send it to our lawyer. Lawyers can deal with that.
Do what lawyers do.
Do what lawyers do, it's what we pay them to do.
I like to pretend that.
Okay.
Is there any other section? Because I know Rick was going to ask me. Any other sections you were concerned with?
I'm still not convinced it needs to be a commission.
So that verbiage was just based on state statute because it calls it joint fire district commission. We can call it whatever, we can call it a committee or a commission. Rick was just calling it a commission because that's what's in the statute. Do you guys have a preference one way or the other?
I like committee. In C, the Emergency Service Building Property Repair Fund.
Section 5.
I just feel like this is gonna get confusing because they're gonna send it to the lawyer, it's gonna redline it. Now you've got different feedbacks that you're
No,
gonna
I'm
send to
just thinking
Rick.
for my own notes.
Okay, so you're not sending this on to Rick. Okay, so make sure you put it in your redline version you
Yeah.
send back. How you want it written, and then we
Yeah.
can look at it.
What about the repair fund?
Well, in 3C, says following receipt of bids, the commission shall make a recommendation to the village and town as to awarding the contract. I mean, that's not how we did it this year, like when we did the blacktopping.
So section
It's
3.
budgeted.
Yeah, so section 3 is for like true construction. Section 4 is for what we've done. So I broke it out into, like, if we're gonna go build something, you gotta do that process. Section 4 is how everything else we've done this year to date. So like the island removal would have fallen into section 4.
But if we put it in our budget, and build onto building say, and both municipalities approved that budget, would we still then go back? Once we had the quotes and it was within the budgeted amount that we had budgeted for?
I mean, we can, up to us, we can put it any way we want it.
Yeah.
I think it's, again, section 3 was more around what's in state statute. And again, I was like, well, why should we have to keep going back to municipalities when we're just gonna, if we're gonna spend 20 grand on a new AC unit?
Right.
If it's in the budget, why do we care? Like, let's just, we've got the money. It's a rubber stamp at that point. It's just adding more bureaucracy and time. Let's just,
Right.
if it's in the budget, let's just move forward. But I think the attorneys recommended that section 3 be added for, if you're gonna do something big, right? Like if we're gonna build another wing out of the ESB, you wanna follow, let's go follow state statute, but anything else for maintenance or repair. And again, I think language wise, it felt like we can, how we want to decipher the difference between contractual procedure for contracts required to be bid versus maintenance or requires. I'm not a lawyer, that's to Sarah's point.
And you want the agreement to say for 5 years rather than 10?
What's EMS? I think that's what we're trying to match. It's 5.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think we have an end date. I think it just.
Yeah, right now, section 7A talks about 5 years from the effective date, and then it auto renews for a successive 5-year period unless either municipality provides notice to the other municipality would intend to withdraw or amend this 12 months prior to the expiration.
That's the EMS one?
No, that's what's in the fire.
Oh, okay.
If I recall, I think that's almost word for word in the EMS.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns on this one?
Not at this point.
I don't think we need to table it. We're just gonna
That ended
take no
in
action.
11.
Yeah, 11 future agenda items. We'll add the
EMS is 10 years with auto renewal.
okay.
Thanks, Jane. Do you think your attorney could send the red lines to Rick Manthe, our attorney, before the next meeting so that the attorneys can talk about it amongst themselves before our next meeting?
Yep.
Okay. Future agenda items, joint fire agreement, and then insurance discussion.
Command 1 discussion, let's just leave it general,
If you want to,
or the command card
command
discussion.
card?
Yeah.
So do we want to, so we don't want to talk about all up insurance?
No, I'm just saying, I just, as a all encompassing, rather than saying insurance or maintenance or this or that or this. Or...
I think David was talking about insurance
Yeah,
for
we're talking
everything.
all up insurance.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
So when I say insurance, what I mean is today, the policies in Cottage Grove Fire Department Inc. name, town and village are leasers and owners of equipment, town clerk is the contact. Just at first blush, that feels kind of complicated, but I'm not an insurance expert or a lawyer.
It also has the fire district on the policy too.
Okay. So it just needs
Insurance.
just an overall insurance.
So there are two
overall
agendas,
insurance,
overall
yeah,
insurance and the
correct.
command car,
Correct.
separate.
Say what?
Overall insurance issues and the command
Yeah.
car one, I think are two separate agenda items.
Correct. So I have 3 agenda items: joint fire agreement, command car 1 discussion, and overall insurance discussion.
You just added the word command to your car one name. Is that
Any
okay?
update on the radios?
I'll call it car 1.
Funding?
I emailed them today.
Last time you checked AFG,
asked again, and it's a good thing Lang is on too, so you can hear this. I emailed them today and asked for an update since the last time they posted was 9/28, and I didn't hear anything back. So my question was, are there going to be any more awards on the fiscal year 21 grants? So I'll let you guys know if I hear anything from them, but I have a sad feeling about it, so.
If I held my breath, I'd be long gone by now.
Chief Lang actually emailed them a few weeks ago also and asked them about pretty much the same question. And they literally said that they don't announce anybody that didn't get it until the very end. They, at the same time that they're announcing people that did get it. So like, we could have been denied a long time ago and they won't tell anybody until later this month, later in December, that we didn't get it. And also, historically, we're not saying this is 100% indication, but historically, when we got this grant for the extraction system, they start emailing you and asking you questions about the DUNS numbers and all your financial information to make sure it's all accurate before they award it to you. So, and none of that's happened. Pretty strong indication that we're probably not going to get it, but keep our fingers crossed, like you said. So.
And it's coming towards the end of the year here. And so I feel like, so my question was like, is it over? Kind of like, but in a much more professional language, like, is it over? So I'm just waiting.
Seems like this seems later than even usual.
Yeah,
Usually it's middle of November.
so we'll see what they say.
Okay.
I'm still working on the heating for the old radio room. 3-sided windows room, that's still
We don't call it the fishbowl anymore?
fishbowl, whatever.
I know the kids like it. I'm like, hey, look at the fishbowl. Somebody's standing there. They think it's funny. One kid actually, one of my middle son went and got goldfish stickers because he's like, we should put it on the fishbowl. Yeah, stick them on the window. Cool. Any other agenda item topics I should add? No. Next meeting. So.
It's actually the 26th, so I don't know if we want to meet them.
No.
19th?
That's the town
It's a
board.
village board meeting. How about 20th?
When?
December 20th?
December 20th?
Tuesday, December 20th.
Second day of Hanukkah, if it makes any difference to anybody.
It's our training night.
It may or may not.
I
It's a training night, so it wouldn't work probably.
No.
I mean, we can,
All right, how about 22nd? Thursday, December 22nd.
I'm available any day.
Do we want to do 6 or 6:30 on the 22nd?
6:30
6:30?
on the 22nd.
Just put it in the calendar here. That works for you, sir?
Yep.
Six 6:30 on the 22nd. Okay, next stated meeting, December 22nd, here at Town Hall at 6:30 PM. Awesome.
We adjourn.
I have a motion for adjournment. Do I have a second? Second by Chris, non-debatable. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. See you next month. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Hello?
Oh, April. No, I got this. This was from
That's the
the,
whole reason she came here.
I got it at home once already today. Melissa got quick dropped it off for me to get to you.
oh, okay.
So what did you say? It was Steve, 10:33 emergency? All units stand by.
Going back to my top days and my early
This conference will now be recorded.
early EMS days, everything was 10 code, sure. And
They don't do 10 codes anymore?
no, they don't. Everything's plain talk now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's, yeah, used to.